Okay, let's just take it from the top. This is from ScienceDaily.com. They report every day on all kinds of new things, and I see the same sort of stuff coming over and over and over. Refuse to talk to me, but this is what they claim is this T-Rex. There's a relative that was earlier than the T-Rex, and they're going to talk about that here. They say restudying the fossils, and that's what they have to do, is restudy them, and that's what they're doing. They're going back and looking. I know why they're doing it too, because I have shown that there's nothing but life, and Yale agrees with my discovery of exceptional preservation, soft-bodied creatures. So this is not something that's unknown now. And what they're doing is trying to stay within their own box, which is, trying to keep the academics happy by saying, oh, we found another T-Rex-ish thing. So it says a new study in Scientific Reports reshapes our understanding of how the most famous dinosaur ever walked the earth, Tyrannosaurus rex, first arrived in North America by introducing its earliest known relative on a continent. Well, that's fine. Maybe they're relatives, and maybe it is earlier than the Tyrannosaurus rex, but I'm going to tell you something right now. What they talk about the Tyrannosaurus rex being bazillions of years old is just not true. Now it says the study identifies a newly discovered subspecies of the T-Rex called Tyrannosaurus macarena. I don't know how you pronounce that, macarena. The newly discovered predator is older and more primitive than its better-known cousin, but just as large, roughly the size of a double-decker bus, which is the size of an amoeba compared to what I have discovered. Now, they found skulls and all these kind of things. Big deal. None of that matters because it's nonsense what they're doing here. It's just not, these things are, look at that, that's just the tiniest little thing you can imagine. I have fingerprints from something that's bigger than that. This is a hair follicle. Think of the size of the creature that would have to have this hair follicle. This is just nonsense that they're so impressed with these little scraps of bones and things they find. T-Rex rethinking their evolutionary. They have to rethink everything now. They have to start all over again. And a student found this, and he started thinking, because trust me, his professors are not going to think. He started working on this in 2013, uncovering subtle differences. All it is the same T-Rex, but a little bit of a twist to it. And T-Rex is so well known it became possible to show that New Mexico was something new. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Who cares? It's just a little scrap of bone. The differences are subtle. They don't mean much to me. I'm going to tell you that right now. So what if it's a little older? And it's nothing. It's just tiny. It's only 40 feet long, 12 feet high. That's just minuscule. This is really, literally, just some kind of little tick or something, basically, on the creatures that I found. It raises the possibility there are still more new Tyrannosaurus discoveries to be made. Well, they've already been made, and they're refused to be made. All right, expanding our understanding of T-Rex. Well, the T-Rex is fine, but at least 72 million years ago. No, I don't think so, my friends. Not at all. Tyrannosaurus likely originated, and they have no idea. Likely, everybody agrees. The consensus is peer review says this. Well, no. Peer review is nothing more than if you don't say what I told you to say, we will throw you off the bus. And the conclusion is unraveling dinosaur evolution. Well, for reasons that remain to be discovered, dinosaurs may have evolved to larger sizes in the south. Well, they have larger sizes in North Africa, I can show you that. Towards the very end of the Cretaceous period, which is supposed to be 145 to 66 million years ago, for reasons unknown, they have no clue what they're talking about. The giant Tyrannosaurus suddenly spread north alongside giant horned dinosaurs. Well, suddenly came out of dying creatures because they were parasites. All right. It seems more than a century after T-Rex was first discovered, there's a lot we still don't know, and boy, is that a fact. And then they give you the references and who came up with all this stuff. Well, let me show you what the reality of this situation is. Okay, this is why I'm upset, is because these things were written about. This is the Theogony was written 800 BC by Hesiod, really the first guy that wrote after the flood. The flood happened 3,500 years ago, approximately, according to Velikovsky. He researched every culture on the face of the planet. They all had the same story, a terrible cataclysm. Even the earth stood still, washed everything away, killed almost everybody on Earth, and killed all these giants. Now, when I talk about giants, here, this is what was written in the myth. Now, when I show you what I can present as evidence, I want a teacher, I want a professor, I want some expert, some renowned person that makes all these claims to discuss this, because this is why I'm so upset. This is from Apollodorus. Now, he took all of Hesiod's works and all of the early works, and he put them all together, and it's called the Library of Apollodorus, 180 BC. And this is from 1.6.3. All right, well, let's go 1.6.2 says, the other giants Zeus smote. He killed them all and destroyed them with thunderbolts. All of them Hercules shot with arrows as they were dying. So they killed all the giants. Well, who were the giants? The giants were the children of Earth. Listen to this. When the gods, who was Zeus and his buddies, had overcome the giants, the children of Earth, they killed them all. Earth was more enraged and had intercourse. Earth herself had intercourse with Tartarus and brought forth Typhon. Let me just show you Typhon. And it talks about him chasing the gods into the, and they turned themselves into animals, and he was spitting fire from his, fire flashed from his eyes. His body was all winged, unkempt, hair streamed all over. And he was spouting great jets of fire from his mouth. And the gods saw him rushing at them. They made for Egypt in flight, and being pursued, they changed their forms into those of animals. And Typhon got the fish. This is why I'm so upset. This is not being addressed. It's right there in front of your faces. All right, they're making a big deal out of finding something that's a relative of T-Rex. It's just a little bit different. Well, it's still no big deal. This is only 40 feet long or so. 100 feet long is still nothing. I have a giant here on my property that I had DNA tested, parts of it, because I don't have the whole entire thing. But I had a 3-foot long fingertip, DNA tested, and it still has the fingernail and the fingerprints on it. And that came back human DNA. 3 feet long, the fingertip only. Then I have this, which is a hair follicle from a giant creature, which is, I don't know what it was, but that's a gigantic hair follicle. And it is a hair follicle. Right here, you see that? That's where the muscle attaches. That's where the root ball is, where the hair comes up. That's where it comes out the top. And this is the sebaceous gland over here. And it even has the blood supplies. There's those 2 little dots right there. That's the blood supply. This hair follicle is, I don't know, at least 300 or 400 times bigger than us. I have, like I said, body parts that have DNA still in them. They already been tested. This has been done, and it was done with a top shelf test, PCR, very, very top end, and submitted to Yale, and they refused to engage, and then took credit for my work. So this is why I'm upset. And then they skewered it. See, exceptional preservation, soft-bodied creatures, they just gave it a name, promoted by silica-rich oceans. Exactly what I said to Yale. It's exactly what I presented to this guy right here, Derek Briggs. And they took credit for this, and they got funded by NASA. NASA paid them to do this. And this is only my work. There's nothing different here than what I showed them. And it was a worldwide, big creatures in this one layer, worldwide. And then they say how they got preserved is controversial. I know how they got preserved. But it was exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures. All right, and then they say, these are the earliest creatures that exist. See, here we present evidence from this place in Australia. This preservation was due to rapid, early-stage precipitation of silica cements. It's when Venus almost hit the Earth. It's all the whole turmoil of the Earth. All the oceans boiled over are everywhere, and they literally boiled because the impact of Venus's atmosphere into ours combusted everything. It caused a huge turmoil, and then there's a silica, it's called a siliceous ooze on the bottom of the ocean floor came up. That's why it's silica rich, and that's silica saturation. It was super saturated, high silica saturation state, and they can't account for that. They have no idea why that happened. And all of that I presented them in my paper. Now this paper was from 2016. My paper was here from 2015. All right, this is exactly what I presented them, exactly the same thing. I called it fascia-facilitated fossilization because all of the things that I had, the coating, the collagens and the kerogens, all that coated it, they boiled down from phospholipids down into aluminum silicates, which is feldspar. This goose right here, my buddy Caesar Augustus, that's feldspar. There's his feathers on the top. That's how how excellent the preservation was. Exceptional, as Yale says, and that is correct. It is exceptional. And all of my stuff is exceptional. I have stuff that's so well preserved you can almost transplant it. Now, this was in a year before, and I had all my stuff was done by then. I had CAT scans, I had DNA tests, I had the specimens, I had the chemistry done. I knew everything about it, and I had presented it all to Yale. And they just, the last words I got from Derek Briggs was, "Oh, you just have Rockster." And then they presented their paper by being funded from NASA, and they said, yeah, it all happened, and it was before any other fossils that they knew of. I'm not kidding you. My fossils, my mud fossils, apparently are prior to bones and teeth and everything. They say it's completely soft-bodied. That's just totally wrong. Yale has missed everything, and they took my research. That's why I'm upset. All right, I'm just going to go right to the heart of why I'm upset. This is a bone. There's no anatomist alive that wouldn't understand that that's a bone. It's broken off here, and there is still a tiny remnant of bone there, that little white. It hasn't transitioned completely. What Yale thought was this was a soft body, not a bone whatsoever, because they don't see bone. Well, you don't see bone in mud fossils, but you see exceptional preservation of like this lung. This is a human lung. It's been DNA tested, CAT scanned, took the blood right out of here, inside, not off the surface. It's flat as a pancake, as are basically all my mud fossils, even Caesar here. All right, there's his feathers again. This side is flat because he died laying like this. There's this neck is right there. You can't really see it unless you know what to look for. But over there is an artery, and I put hydrogen peroxide in there. It bubbles up like crazy because it's saturated with blood. It's still in here. That's his neck. You can see it if you know what to look, how to look, you know. But everything transitioned in these. So they say, oh, that must have been soft body. He was just a ball of jelly here, flying around ball of jelly. I don't think so, Yale. Derek Briggs. Now, this is their touting how good they are with this 2016. I'm a little upset, so I'm sorry for being kind of nasty, but I can't help myself. Now, they say this was the earliest community of complex sea creatures. Well, the whole world was a sea at this particular time because of the impact of Venus. And they say it was a warm, slimy, planetary petri dish, nurtured a broad array of exotic species. Yes, all my stuff, wait till I show you some exotic. We likely wouldn't even know about it at all if not for a quirk in the chemistry of ancient oceans, which is the silica. And I say because of Venus almost hitting Earth, disrupting all of the oceans, the silica ooze, the siliceous ooze, just look it up, siliceous ooze, 15% of the ocean floor is covered with this really dense silicon ooze. And it came to the surface, and it's a biomineralizer, and it mineralized everything and turned it into stone, right? Just like that almost. Now, so they say, the scientists say, if not for this quirk in chemistry of the Asian oceans, they wouldn't even know about it. Now, here it is right here, a Yale-led research team. No, I led it. So it has nothing to do with them leading anything. Found that this region, this particular zone, a collection of marine fossils found sandstone around the world. The whole world was completely coated with ocean at that time, and it was washed over everything. And yes, there was a lot of sandstone, because sand is nothing more than silica. It's quartz, SiO2, silicon dioxide. And then there's little impurities in it too, yes. But all of that came up, and it tried to find a place to get stable, and it could find it in holes in creatures and attaching to the molecular structure of the creature and turn it into stone. Just like this. This is nucleophilic substitution. I showed you this as a hair follicle. What happens here is when all of the transition metals and all of the things that invade this find another molecule in here to bond with, and then it just becomes stable. And that's what happened to these, and it was because of the hot silica-rich oceans. It would never have happened. It would have never happened except for the silica. And that's what I showed them in my paper. Hold on, let me just be sure you understand, because I'm pissed off about it. Of course I'm pissed off. 50 times the silicon as other tissues. And this was back a year before they're talking about it. Everything I said, they said it and threw in a bunch of fancy words. I said there's the collagens and keragens, which is this layer that coats everything. That's what this is. It's fascia. Nobody was even paying attention to it. And I discovered interstitium and the fascia. And I said right here, it's one giant system. All fascia is made of collagens and keragens, creating fiber and elastins in a sheet that wraps everything individually. This is individually wrapped up. This bone is individually wrapped up. Everything, every muscle is individually wrapped up. Where was I? Individually, and then it comes together as one giant system. They now call it the interstitium fluid-filled highway, and that was just announced in 2018. All right, because nobody ever heard of it. Or a medical person, you may never have heard of fascia. Nobody even know about it. The only people that were even looking into it was in Germany, and I have another friend in the United States, and I don't think he wants me to mention his name, but he helped me a lot. And nobody else was looking into it. So I discovered the interstitium, and I discovered the mud fossils. And they will not engage. All right, so once again, I'm going back over the same stuff over and over and over until you can walk up to your professor and say, what do you think about this? Without being scared to do it. Because right now, you should be scared if you approach them, because they will take it offensively. Now, I just showed you T-Rex. Well, how about Typhonius? That is a dragon in the desert. Now, he's outlined here. This is his throat. And these are the scales. All of this is just running off blood from his decaying body. There's his red-fired eye, and there's all of the stuff that he spit trying to kill the gods. All right, and here he is not outlined. Here he is. Just, you got to take your time. All this streaming hair and all that fluty stuff. There's his throat, and there's the stuff he's spitting down at the fish. And the fish was one of the gods. And where is it? It's right here in North Africa. All right, don't forget, Earth was enraged after the gods, which this is one of them right here, this fish, killed all her children. They killed all her children. The giants killed them all. And they were her children, whether they were monsters or not, doesn't matter. Here's the head of Typhon right here. All right, there's his head. And there's his red, flashing, flared eye. See it? All right, here's all his hairy, flared, unkempt fur and hair and whatever it is, feathers. And all of this is just runoff. This is his throat. This is where his body is, right up here. It's not down here. And these are dragon scales, the whole row of them all the way down. until Zeus cut his throat with his great and mighty sword. Exactly what was written. And that is exactly what we see. And they knew about these creatures in the ancient times, and they even put them on maps. Okay, go back and read Apollodorus 1.6.3. Apollodorus 1.6.3. It describes Typhon as being his head brushing the stars. He was so tall. His legs had the thighs of a human. The rest of him was all unkempt, red, flashing, flared eye, spitting a torrent of fire and nastiness down at one of the gods who had changed herself into a fish. Right there. And this was all spit out from Typhon's throat here and his beards. You see these two beards right here? All right, that beard is spitting out all that nasty stuff. Now, how it did it, I don't know. This one here has got something going on with it. You see how it comes over here and attaches up in here? There's some kind of fluids going through there, too. But this one has got the real nasty fluid coming out of it. And that comes down and right into the fish's back. Right there. And it ate right in. And you can actually see the blood vessels now because it has disintegrated the tissue that was on the top, all the way down to the arteries, the blood vessels, the tiniest little blood vessels, right into the capillaries, and then into the veins and the lymphatic system to be regenerated, to be fixed back up again. Of course, it's dead now, but you can see right into it. You can see the biology right inside, because whatever it was, that nastiness ate away the fish's top. Now, you can come up here and watch this all you want. I've done literally probably 100 videos on this, and I'm not going to stop. I'll do another 100. I'll do another 1,000. Doesn't matter. Because until somebody pays attention to this, you're just being taught nonsense and lies and fraud and plagiarism and all these other things that are happening in our top universities. It's called the Ivy League. Well, it's poison ivy. You go there and you are going to be infected, my friends, because you will not be able to get out of there without saying what they tell you to say and survive. They have you right under their thumb. It's absolutely, they're insidious. They lie. They commit fraud, which means to suppress unwanted information. Academia has to allow all the information that's valid and can be shown and has support. And I have DNA, I have CAT scans. When they refuse to examine, that is fraud. That's what it says. Academic fraud is refusal and suppression of unwanted information. And then to take my research and pass it off as their own at Yale was an absolute disgrace. And I think that Yale's president should resign immediately, and Derek Briggs should never teach another student. There's nothing but, you think of it the way you want to think of it. I see it as fraud and plagiarism there. All right, and they will not respond. I've sent this over and over and over. I said, you got to straighten this out. You got to straighten it out. You got to straighten it out. Well, they're not straightening it out. They couldn't care less, because I have no voice and I am being suppressed. And then even the people that want to know about this are saying, oh, you went all that, you forget about it. Yeah, it's just, forget it. But well, what am I supposed to do? Just walk away and go to sleep? You can do that. I'm not going to do it. All right, let me take a less combative tone, but they're saying this is some big deal, or T-Rex is a big thing. Well, I don't see that at all. I see it as a parasite, and that parasite came off of these giants that I showed you, like Typhon here. He wouldn't even know it was there. Even 100-foot long thing. This is 1,100 miles long. He would have no idea. It would be like an amoeba living on you. It's not some kind of bacteria. You have no idea. Same thing on here. Now, inside his guts, though, different story. Inside his guts, he had sea serpents living in here, which are huge monsters. Living in his body, just like we have worms and, all kind of different parasites inside creatures' bodies. Same thing. So what happens when he died? He said, there's no more nutrition coming through. So what did they do? They came up here, and they went out through these rivers, basically, into the ocean. You see it coming right off his head. They went right out into the ocean and said, hey, you got any boats out here? You got any sailors we can eat? That's what happened. And they were all over the world, and they were there only after the flood. Because after the flood, they had no place to eat anymore. These guys were living inside their digestive system primarily. Just like we have. We have a ton of stuff in there. A lot of people have worms and everything else. I mean, you're not supposed to have a lot of that stuff. But some of that stuff is not bad for you, I don't think. That's a whole other story. But this was one of the gods, changed herself or himself into a fish and didn't quite make it. Typhon didn't make it either. And on the maps, they know he didn't make it. It's not just me that is saying this. They said this right here, this map. Whoops, I didn't get the good picture of it. But he comes all the way across here. Hold on, let me get the map, because you can see his throat is cut and everything. All right, that's better. This was a map done by, I can't remember his name, Musafa or something like that. He was basically king of the world. He was a big shot. And he had everybody go all around the world and gather all the information they could gather about the world. The Red Sea is here. All of these coordinates and everything. This is back in 1375. And again, I'm not going to link anything because I don't have a link to it. But that's the name of it right there. It's called Map 1375, Atlas Cattle Land, Abraham Kresk. And you're going to have to figure out where it is because I don't know. Now, this is Typhon. Whoops. All right, there's his flared tail, which I showed you. His whole scaled body runs all the way up to where it was cut by Zeus. All right, this is a very detailed map. So they knew what they were talking about. And that's where Typhon was. He runs the whole North Africa. It's there. All right, this is the problem with these guys. This guy over here, I think he's standing right there. This is gigantic. This is half a mile long, this thing here. Look at this. These are all dragon scales. And it runs forever. And he's looking at this like some important big thing. I said, what about this? Oh, that's flat iron. They're just everywhere. Yes, they are. They are everywhere because everywhere is where dragons were. All right, dragons were everywhere. All right, it's just like here. See this tail coming way out here? And you see the runoff here? Here's where you gotta start to understand what you see. People look at it and say, oh, it's just dirt. No. This right here, my friends, is his tail. All right, and these are the flat irons they talk about. You see these? You see the different colors? This thing was armed to the teeth. You're not going to get through those plates. Those plates are really tough minerals. Now, why is this running out here like this? And here like that, and on like that? And it's only in this area. Well, this is a depression. So wherever the blood flows down and it collects in one area, it will run out. All right, because right now, here, hold on one second. All right, this is 1075 meters. You come up to here and you're at 1131. You come over here, you're at 1300. So the blood that was in it would puddle down here and then it runs out. That's why you see it in that particular location. And then there's another one over here where it's sort of puddled down and dripping out from his dead tail. And it flares way out to here. Just as you saw on that ancient map. Here's where he poops. It's got a cloaca. So it's a reptile, bird, whatever. And here's all the rest of the runoff up here that ran out from his dead, decaying dragon scaled body. So these are the dragon scales, flat irons as they would call them. Those are dragon scales. Like, it's unbelievable they cannot understand what they see here. Well, I don't know how they could possibly continue to deny this after it's being put in their face for 10 years. 10 years. And all of these ancient texts talk about this. You are living in a fantasy world right now, my friend. If you believe anything that your professors are telling you right now, you live in a fantasy world. Absolute fantasy. And if you don't agree with that fantasy, they will destroy your life. They have that ability to destroy you unless you say exactly what they want you to say. Just come up here and do a little research on your own. I've done this so many times, and I understand why people are getting upset because I go over and over and over. Well, I'm not going to stop until you can walk up to your professor and say, can you explain this to me? Can we discuss this? And sit down and have a discussion. Now, that's insane. That's crazy. It can't happen. Just go sit in the back of the room. And this is what my whole life has been that. Spur, shut up and sit in the back of the room. Well, Spur doesn't shut up, and he says, there is no room that I'm going to sit in the back of. I can tell you that right now. Okay, my friends, got a little distracted there for a minute, but I'm back on this. It's the Yale-led team, and again, that was me that put out all this information. And they said it's in this one layer worldwide from 540 to 500 million years old. Everything that I showed you of my stuff sits right on top of the face of the earth. There's nothing buried. The creatures themselves were small as a few millimeters and as large as 1 meter and lived in dense, diverse communities on the seafloor. The whole world was an ocean at this time when this occurred. And yes, they did live on the seafloor because they just drowned. And they weren't as large as 1 meter. They were as large as 1,000 miles. Now listen to this. They agree with this. Many of them are outright bizarre in appearance and do not resemble any organisms alive today. That's from Lydia Tarhan, the first author of the study. And they say, oh, we would like to understand. They don't want to like to understand. They took credit for my work and won't talk to me. And I have the information that they want to understand. And they're just totally wrong about this. A big part of the answer involves figuring out how these fossils are able to form. I know exactly how they formed. And it was from a hot, silica-rich saltwater flood from the impact of Venus into our atmosphere. And this is all researched by Velikovsky, who academia destroyed. Velikovsky did this research in 1950. It was called Worlds in Collision. Look it up. They destroyed him. Look up this history. It was called the Velikovsky Affair. The Velikovsky Affair. They forced the publisher to take the books off the bookshelves after being #1 on a bestseller list for 11 weeks in a row. #1 bestseller list 11 weeks in a row, and they forced him to take it off because they didn't like what he had to say. And then they destroyed his life. From then on, it was downhill for Velikovsky. Nobody would have known his name anymore if it wasn't for the book I wrote about him. Back in 2015, I wrote it just when I was so upset at Yale for doing this to me. I wrote a book called Mudfossils and Velikovsky and Minds in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision. I wrote Minds in Collision. And I think I had something in there about one small step for humankind, one giant leap for the human mind. And the human mind can't get there. They just can't get it. They just cannot get there. And that's because they want to protect their position. And they're afraid they'll be destroyed, just like Velikovsky was, if they even start to look. And that's why Briggs, and then now they're all totally wrong about this. How were they able to form? I know how. Now they say the animals themselves are entirely soft-bodied. That's just false. They lived before the evolution of shells, teeth, or bones. No, absolutely not. And they say that's typically the only parts of an organism to become fossilized. Any soft body can be preserved in the right conditions, and it's silica-rich, salty, hot waters. I've made mud fossils. Not fabulously, but I've made some. Now listen to this. What the researchers realized was that the oceans during the time were much richer in dissolved silica than they are today. Yes. Yes. Which is why I was the researcher that said that. It enabled the transformation of these animals into rock to occur over a matter of hours or years rather than a usual time frame. Ediacara organisms rapidly buried by sand during underwater storm events. The whole Earth was an underwater storm. There was nothing but underwater storm going on, the lead author, Tarhan, says. The process of cementing the sands, there was not sand, it was mud. The mud is nothing more than eroded flesh. The flesh was eroded during a burning, boiling process, and then what was left over was the collagen-coated organs and so forth. And they preserved fabulously. And that's even where the heart would have sat right behind. This guy died like this. His heart was back here, right under there. All right, and he died flat in the flood. And I got so much of this stuff. And that was a bone. And again, there is a piece of bone. I could prove everything, every single word I'm saying. They weren't all soft-bodied. This is called nucleophilic substitution, where it gets invaded by stabilizing minerals and molecules. It's primarily the silicates stabilize everything. And we're like, this is a lung, all right? This here is a lung too. And you take any anatomist, they look at that, they'll say, yeah, that's a lung. And this is where the big part in the back was. It filled in with silicates. You see, it's all nothing but silicon. That's why they say there's veins of quartz. They're veins. They are veins. They filled in with quartz. You see this? This is who I presented all my research to was Derek Briggs. Now, the paper was co-authored by Ashley Hood, whoever that is, who is a Yale postdoctoral associate. Now, Derek Briggs, Yale's Evelyn Hutchinson Professor of Geology, Geophysics, Curator of Invertebrate Paleontology at the Yale Peabody Museum of Natural History, takes credit for my work. Now, who paid for it? NASA. They got funding from all these different people, including NASA exobiology grant. Now, I sent all my information to NASA about what's on Mars, and what's on Mars is also biology, gigantic biology, identical to Earth. And you're spending billions and billions and billions of our dollars to walk around in circles and will not respond. This is really a tragic situation, and it's gone on for 10 years now. I'm fed up. All right, you hear Tarhan? She says they were bizarre. Yeah, there's a bizarre. That's pretty damn bizarre. There's a kid's leg standing back here. This thing, and whenever you see green moss growing on something, it's feeding off of the blood and the nutrition that's still within these bodies. And a lot of them have a lot of blood and nutrition left into it. And a flea is nothing more than saturated with blood. Now the body is behind there, inside buried. But here's what a flea looks like. They look pretty similar. Now, of course, this was before the flood, and the damn thing was as big as your room. But, fleas, that's why I say they were ticks. They were ticks, little insects. This would be an insect, not even an insect, living on Typhon. And they make a big deal out of it. See, here's what these things look like. Now, that would have been saturated with blood, and it's leaking out of his head. This looks very, very, very similar. And it even has all these leggy-looking things on it. This is in the Czech Republic somewhere. Somebody sent this to me. See the leggy-looking things? And it sure looks like the same thing to me, only it's a smidge bigger. And look at this. Now, I saw something the other day, David Attenborough, who I had contacted about my stuff, and he says, oh, I only look for things that are millions of years old. Because I told him, I says, these things are not as old as you think. And he took it like, I'm only looking at new stuff. No, this is the stuff they're looking at. They just think it's millions of years old. This is washing off. This is my friend Tyson Carlson out Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures. This is a bilipid membrane. This is the lower part of the membrane. This is the upper part of the membrane. In between here is what they call a fluid-filled highway, and there's a lot of fluids that float in between membranes. And I saw one the other day with David Attenborough. They found this skull in the side of a cliff that was in, I forget where it was, but in the membrane fluid-filled highway, there was something with a 3-meter long head some kind of fishy thing that was, and they were taking it out of the side of the mountain. I did a video on it. But this is a membrane, and here's what a membrane looks like, the physiology of it right here. All right, this is what we're looking at here. It's the exact same thing. You see the holes here, holes here, holes here. Same thing here, and then all of these little membranes. And that was one layer down here. The other one was 6 feet above. Okay, you saw the size of the creatures and the size of the membranes, and this is Hunstanton's Cliffs. I think it's called Hunstanton Cliffs. This is over the United Kingdom. It's nothing more than this that is eroded away by the ocean. And these black balls are very, very hard, and they're tough as hell. The brown straps are also pretty tough, but they do erode. The black balls do not. All the rest of the stuff is floppy and turns into mud. All right, the skin at the top will collapse over the top of the mud, and this is exactly what you will end up with. The skin was up here. The flesh was down here with all those balls anchored into it, so that you could stretch and pull this way and that way in all these different ways, and then you come back to wherever the balls were anchored. Well, the oceans come in like this, and it's all just kind of collapsed. Well, the balls have to go somewhere. They're not going to fall, they're not going to deteriorate. These things last just about forever. Well, they do last forever. Look, these are Moki marbles. These are a smaller version, but this is in skin too. But it was a much smaller creature. But it's pretty good size, because in us, they look like this. That's what they look like in us. That's a super high electron microscope. This is the same picture, not quite so magnified. And then this is like all the different layers of tissue, fluid-filled highway, and all these interstitium balls. This is it right here. Now, the reason you're seeing these things all coated with this fungus-looking stuff is because they are saturated with blood, just like that little tick or flea, same thing. But in the ocean, they grow a brownish-looking stuff on it. On land, those same balls, all right, these same balls, if they were on land and they were in fresh water and they eroded out quickly, they would grow green. You want to see that? Yes, you do. By the way, I told you I discovered this, and I did, and I wrote it up in that paper from 2015. This is 2018, Meet Your Interstitium, a Newfound Organ. They repeated virtually exactly what I had in my paper. And they said, because I found out that where all of these things tie together, where the interstitium ties together, it appears that they were acupuncture points. And they even say that in this paper, that they've discovered that too. I mean, everybody discovers what I put in my papers. And this goes back to 2018. And these are the balls right here. And that's that fluid-filled highway. They never knew this was here. And the reason is they would do autopsies. By the time they got it back in the autopsy room, the fluid's flat. They thought this was one piece of like almost like a sheet of elastic, plastic almost, a hard, flat plastic sheet, basically. Well, no, it's open, and the fluid-filled things go through there. And like I said, David Attenborough, they had a monster flowing through there that died in the guy's body when it died, and it turned into a fossil. And it was inside the fluid-filled highway, and they're taking it out. And the head alone, I think, was 9 feet long. So it was a fairly good-sized creature inside this. But in some of these, in Typhon, he wouldn't even know it was there. It would be just another parasite. And that's where they went into the ocean, these gigantic creatures. And they had pictures of them, not pictures, but they had drawings of all of these different style of parasites, and that's what they were, parasites. T-Rex was nothing more than a tick. So we're going to call him Tick-Rex from now on. T stands for tick. He's a T-Rex. You see this? I'm sorry for the harsh tone today. This has been eating away at me, I'm telling you. It's been a tough road here. They got this, they're baffled. They can't understand these eggs. They call them eggs coming out of the wall. No, they're not. These are those tendon balls. They're just eroding. The wall is eroding. Oh yeah, did I show you the moss ones? Hold on. All right, this is just too cool. These are the Moki marbles in Utah, Arizona, and there was skin all over this, and the skin has eroded away and turned into mud and clay. Now this is a different story. It's all eroded into the ocean. The balls are covered with some kind of marine life that lives on the biological fluids that are in here. And again, salt water, totally different than fresh water. So if we saw those in fresh water, they would have moss on them, because moss absolutely loves bodily tissues, which is primarily blood. And here is the moss ones. You see that? Same balls. Only we're in a place where they weren't in an ocean where there's salt water. Salt water does something different, has some kind of different creatures. But look it up here. These are all the same balls, go all the way up here. Look, everywhere. Everywhere. They're everywhere, 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 everywhere. And these are those interstitium balls. All right, this is not hard to understand this if you can get your head around the fact that the creatures were this big. You see this? I just did a video on this the other day. I did one when they first came back to Earth with the remnants of what they picked up off of Bennu, which is this asteroid I'm going to show you in a second. And they say, wow, it contains carbon and water. Well, I also know exactly what this contains. Exactly. I can tell you identical what is in this. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I can tell you right now, I think I'm right. And all they have to do is take some of these scraps. They don't have to have this perfectly uncontaminated stuff. They want to look for microbes. You don't have to look for microbes. That, my friend, is blood. B-L-O-O-D. And I will show you where it came from, because it came from a heart, which is Bennu, and so is Psyche. And that's my prediction, and I will show you the chemistry, because it's primarily going to be the transition metals. Those are what flow through your body that pick up and deliver chemistry through the blood system. So they're going to find a ton of iron, they're going to find carbon, and then they're going to find these a panel of molecules. I got it here somewhere. Here it is right here. This is the panel of molecules that they should find. All right, so this was, they did 27 molecules here, introduction, Hold on a second. All right, this is a fascinating article. What they were doing is trying to find out metals that when you're in your body, they think are going to be toxic. Well, they can be in certain quantities and certain types, yes. However, most of the metals that are in your body are metals that do transferring of molecules. They're called transition elements, and they have oxidation states where they can pick things up and deliver things, because that's what blood is. It's two different oxygenation states, and all of those things in your body get picked up and delivered because of that. Now, this is the metallic profile of whole blood and of 106 healthy volunteers. So that's what they're trying to figure out is, you know, dental amalgam, cigarette smoke has heavy metals in it, all kinds of things I never knew about. It's very interesting. See, tobacco consumption, supplements, trace elements, vitamins, no metal prostheses were included. Number of dental amalgams were recorded. Tobacco consumption, they want to see what's going to harm you, and that's good. I like that kind of thinking. And where did it collect? In the plasma, in the urine, in the hair, and in the nails, and they really did a good job. Now, what were they looking for? They were looking for 26 elements in whole blood and in the plasma, and these are all these different elements. And that's what they're looking for, sort of damaging elements. They're not even talking about iron here, because iron is the good one. They know iron's good for you, so they're not even looking for it here. But there's good things in your body that they understand are good, but I'm not sure they even understand about the nucleophilic substitution, because I found virtually nobody knew about it. Nucleophilic substitution means you have an invading group of molecules that have certain pieces and bits to them called ligands, and they come in and they replace what's in there and then you have a leaving group. So they come in with their ligands. The ligands do a bunch of different attachments, whatever is needed, glucose, oxygen, whatever it is, and then they leave. With a different group leaves. Hold on one second. I'll see if I can make it more clear. All right, let's just go with this and make it really simple. Ligands work with these transition metals. The transition metals exchange one ligand for another. And where are the transition metals? Here they are right here, all these different colors. And what do? They exchange a piece of these for something else and continue on their way. Transition metals form colored complexes, and they vary upon the charge. And that's the charge is what makes it bond with something. And the number and types of groups called ligands. So it depends on what all these things are hooked up to, what they're going to deliver, and then they're just going to keep going on their way and go back to get cleaned up again. That's how transition metals work. And here's what happens when they stabilize something. That right there, you saw those colored transition metals? This is a heart. And that heart, you can see this particular type of tissue has that color. Well, why? It wanted to grab onto some transition metal that caused it to turn into that color. The same thing with this blue one here. The brown is almost inert, doesn't have much of anything. Same thing with the fascia. The fascia has turned into that feldspar, the outside of the whole thing. This is a Yoa nut. But you can see there's all these different chemistry, and the different chemistry is a different transition metals, and the different transitions of metals are there because they're in different parts of the heart. Like this is probably the part that sends back, yeah, as a matter of fact, I can see it now quite easily. This is where you're sending the blue blood through, which is the used blood. And this is the red blood area, which has all the transition metals. And there's 3 big chambers. Let me show you something. Because it's on Bennu. The same thing is on Bennu. They landed in one of these valves and sucked up blood, and that's what they're going to find in Bennu, and that's a heart. You see that? There's where the different colors are. This is the pulmonary valve in the heart, and that one there has the bluish looking blood that I showed you. All right, you see this one here? I think that's the one, and that has real red blood. This I think could be the lymphatic system, and that appears to be the vein blood. To me, that's what it looks like. I could be totally wrong. But you see it up here? It's more, kind of bluish, looking like it's used up. This is very, very red and spiced up with red, arterial blood that's going to flow out and deliver stuff. All right, so that's what you just saw, that heart cut in half. And you have a bag of red blood, and you got those blue bloods and whatever other kinds of stuff in there. And the big tubes running out the top. All right, you see it? That's a big bag of blood. And the other ones are valves that are moving through. I think there's a separation in there. I keep getting too deep into this stuff, I'm sorry. But this one is the big one. And then these are smaller, and then you got your tubes. All right, exactly what I just showed you. Now, what about Bennu? Here's Bennu. Guess what that is? That's a heart. And that's what they just took the sample of. And I'm going to tell you right now, all they got to do is test it. It's going to be exactly what I said as far as the chemistry goes. Now, I showed this the other day, and I was out of focus and not showing it correctly. This is the 2 main valves. All right, there's a third one somewhere around here, maybe over in here. But that is not a crater. That is a tube coming out of there. And this also, my friends, is a tube coming out of here. Hold on. Let me shut this off. Sometimes you can see better. And you see this color? That's where the red blood is. And that's the not red blood. That's the vein side. And all of these things, these valves, are biological. They're not just a crater that something hit here. And I think they came right down in here and grabbed the stuff and took off with it. So they have some just laying around there. They can test that. I don't care about the microbes because it's blood. It's blood. It's a heart. Now this right here is the tendon. The tendon holds it, locks it in, and I'm going to show you that in a second. And this is the slurpy sort of stuff that holds this in so they can wiggle around and it doesn't get torn out of the body. and this is where it locks in and to the muscle, and I'll show you that in a second. So this is benu. Now, I showed you the tubes coming out of it. They're not, it is what it is. It's a heart. And so is psyche. And here's psyche. Same. Now, this one, though, got smelted, it looks like. Something really cooked this baby up. Because to get to this kind of shiny, metally looking stuff, you got, because this was a heart, it had blood, but blood, and I have something here, I'll show you. I have one that's smelted coming into Earth. It's virtually identical to this. And this must have really got hot. Now, how it got so cooked, I don't know. But you got to get over 3,000 degrees to turn that. Let me show you something. I have one here that's a meteorite, and it's got the same sort of look to it. It was from a bone. Hold on a second. All right, you can see this here. This is a bone. It was a meteorite, and the only possible way that this could have turned into iron is to come through space, because this had to get at least to 3,000 degrees to cook that blood and to make it into metal, into iron. All right. Otherwise, the magnet wouldn't attract to that. This is magnetic now, but only in that spot. Over here, there's no magnetism there. You see? There's no blood there. The blood turns into iron, but it has to get cooked, and this got cooked, and it's got to go 3,000 degrees. On Earth, they use electric furnaces, very, very intense furnaces, to turn raw iron, which is a mineral, into steel and metallic iron. So, and I have meteorites here that have come through space and are, well, here's one right here. Well, here it is right here. And that is a lung. I'm telling you right now, there is nothing out there that I can find that wasn't biological. Not a single thing. And they talked about, wars in the heavens. Now, this came, I believe, from the impact of Venus after it almost hit us, killed all the giants and all that stuff. It went and it did hit Mars and destroyed Mars. And at that time, maybe all of this stuff got thrown out into space, because they had the same size creatures there as we had here, which were enormous. I showed you those over and over and over and over. It's been 10 years. And I'm sorry I have this attitude today, but I'll try to cool down a little bit, but I don't know. Anyway, these are where all those tubes are coming out of that heart. It's up on Bennu and Psyche both. I mean, they're almost identical. And they're really virtually identical to this. Look, here's this. Here's this. I think that's the big one down the bottom. I don't know. Oh, I didn't show you where it attaches. Hold on, here it is right here. This is the tendon I showed you. All of that cheap stuff erodes. And you get down to the tendon. That's tough. And then it works its way into the cardiac muscle. And that pulses, and of course those are the big tubes there. This is all gooey stuff. And this gooey stuff holds the plumbing together, so that this thing can move. Your heart is moving all the time. These people, you take a football player, just think of how much motion is going to go on inside his body. That thing better be pretty well glued. And it is. They're glued really tough. I don't know what else I can show you. I think I've shown you enough to support my side of it, and to have it not being allowed to be seen, and they, like Yale, refused to do it, and then took credit for my work. It's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. And we have to rectify this. It has to be rectified. You're living in a fantasy world, paying these people, literally, I think it's $77,000 a year or something, to go to Yale, to be indoctrinated and to be mentalicited and be told things that aren't true. And, I don't know what they're telling them now, but they're not telling them about giant creatures. They're not telling them about giants and dragons. They're not telling them about Apollodorus and Ovid and all of those ancient writers. Were not just making up little silly stories to scare kids. They were telling the truth. And I've shown you the truth. And if you can't accept the truth, shame on you. All right, I love you all. Good morning, my outstanding friends. It's Roger once again in a bit of a mood this morning, and I will explain to you why. And it relates to the fact that I'm now being told to shut up. I keep saying the same things over and over and over. Well, I do. I don't disagree with that. However, when you can go to your professor and bring up this topic of my discovery of Typhon, mud fossils, giants, all of the things, and have a discussion with your professor, then I will shut up. But I'm not going to shut up, and if you don't like me going over the same things over and over, well, you're happy to go somewhere else. And you will go somewhere else if you complain about it, because I'm done with it. I am being now told to shut up because I am not going to stop. And I will not stop until people that have defrauded their students stand up and answer the questions I'm asking. Confront the evidence that I'm presenting. Then I'll shut up.